Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens. It's Dark Side of the Stream. We got it right. Episode 157 this week was my pick, the new docuseries on Netflix, produced by Steven Spielberg. It's called Encounters, and it is incredible.
I didn't know it was produced by Spielberg.
Yeah,
I missed that part.
Yeah,
Wow,
executive producer put the money behind it. Either way, just a note, when he was putting out Close Encounters of the Third Kind back in the late 70s, the United States government sent him a 20-plus page letter telling him why he shouldn't release the film because it would be dangerous. Now, why, Jay, why in the hell would the United States government be so concerned about a fictional movie?
Why, man? This is all.
And a 25-page paper to boot on that.
It goes back for years and years and years. All this.
And I'm so glad that's what we're talking about in this week's episode of Dark Side of the Stream.
Synopsis: this is about people that have had UFO encounters
and those that have been in the. It's actually two things at once, which I thought was brilliant. It basically tells 4 separate stories of mass encounters. Like it wasn't like one guy,
just one dude. No,
it was hundreds and most.
Town,
60 kids or whatever it was.
Cities, right?
And we'll go through that. But then at the same time, they also have someone that's involved in government, kind of telling their version of what is going on and how we're seeing kind of disclosure happen in front of us, or maybe not, or what the government's covering up, or what these guys are seeing, or whatever it is. So I thought that was a brilliant director call to kind of have those two things going on at the same time. It was brilliant. First story talks about the Texas sighting in the early 2000s, and it was cited by over 300 people.
Pretty famous one.
Yeah, and this place where it's of note is because where this sighting happened is the milk producing capital of the world, or is it just the country? Either way, they make more milk than anybody else in this place.
And as the Japanese reporter said, they like the milk.
I don't know what the hell that means.
And that's what he said. That's how this all came about. He says their Japanese press was there when this thing blew up, and one of the Japanese guys said, why do they come to this area? And he goes, well, we have all
the aliens like the milk.
They like the milk. And he's like, whoa.
Okay. The thing about this story, which was just, it blew me away, was, you had a bunch of eyewitnesses talk about seeing this massive situation where they saw basically a ship and then 2 F-15 jets fly right after
which they said, no, there was no F-15s
flying
in that area.
The government's like, we didn't have anybody there. And then they changed it and said, actually,
because these dudes got the satellite data and it showed them on there, man.
This is the only time that, because of a Freedom of Information Act, someone outside of the government has been able to access radar information of what actually happened during this window of time where people they saw something.
See it all.
And right there on the radar, you see it go across, and then you see it go up, and then you see 2 F-15s go right after
all of which the government said didn't happen.
Well, then all of a sudden they said, no, we were actually doing training exercises out there.
Yeah, that's what
and
happens,
also,
man.
Since then, they have yet to release a Freedom Information Act about radar. Since then, this was in like 2006, so almost 20 years.
Really?
So that was the last time they did that, for good reason. Because what happened in Alaska? Why can't we see what happened on radar there? We don't have it.
Show it now.
We're not going to show it. Doesn't it messes with our national defense? Whatever the case may be. This was the last time they allowed it. And the second thing about this was the 2 witnesses I thought were the strongest in the entire series were obviously the constable, who he gets elected, right? So for him to come out and say, hey, I definitely
he's
saw,
like, guys, I can't
he didn't want to do it. Took a little pushing. It took a lot of pushing from a guy that was essentially in the area, who said that he was a huge business owner. Yeah. He had a wife and kids, extremely successful, had planes,
These guys
cars,
ain't gonna just make
everything,
stuff up,
everything,
man,
in everything in life going for this dude. He has this experience, and then it just completely ruined him because he cannot let go of the fact that he needs to know what the hell happened. It's ruined his marriage, almost lost his business. So all these people that are deniers or whatever, I totally get trying to get to the bottom and you want the evidence. But in this case, you got 2 guys that have everything to lose and nothing to gain by coming out and saying they had this experience, and then to literally die on that sword every single day. It's just mind-blowing.
Hardcore, man.
That was just episode 1.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about episode 2 and 3 next. Dark Side of the Stream returns on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. This is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 157, discussing Encounters on Netflix, which you should definitely watch. The second of the stories involves the school children in Zimbabwe.
This story was also in the Phenomenon.
Very
documentary,
crazy
The
story.
Phenomenon,
Yeah. This one gets brought up a lot because of the amount of people that actually
Like
witnessed
60
it.
people or 60 kids or something.
On top of the fact that it also had some very credible stuff, but every single witness thing is the same. Every description that they had was the same. It wasn't like a bunch of kids that just made this up. Now, they did have one guy that came out and was
But
like,
you got one against 60.
but
you know
he said, we made it all up. We made it all up. Now, I want to bring this up because they don't talk about this in the documentary, but I did some investigation. That guy actually said a couple of years before this documentary that he saw it all.
Yeah.
The exact
Somebody
same
paid
way.
him probably to start saying the other, you know?
Okay.
Somebody paid him to start saying that he didn't see it, I think, you know? But like the reporter said, if you have a case, like he presses priests in the Catholic Church for like molestation cases he takes on. He says, if you have 2-3 witnesses, that's good enough for the court. Here they have 60 witnesses. And how is that not good enough?
And again, they brought that denier in, I guess, just to kind of play it open field.
Felt like he got paid, man.
But again, if you go look at some of the interviews he's given in the past, so his credibility is completely gone. And again, you go back to, what do these kids have to gain? What do they gain by saying this stuff? Nothing. Absolutely.
Especially young kids.
Nothing.
You know? Yeah.
So
they saw the aliens. The aliens came out of the ship and they drew them
and gave them a message, basically saying that we're screwing up the world.
Like a message in their head. It was just like,
they all heard it. And again, you go by what they say.
Crazy.
That one was a crazy one. Number 3 was the UK.
Yes.
One that happened basically in Wales. And that one was also very interesting because they have, and that was another thing, especially about that one, where they start to creep in
folklore,
religion, myths, how all this stuff, because they start talking about like fairies and things that exist in that culture and how they, it could be good, could be bad. We're not talking about the fairies, that Tinkerbell fairies that Disney has created. We're talking about the actual creatures that these people believed in. And again, maybe they were aliens this whole time. I don't know, but that wasn't the only one. There was still one more episode we need to dive into on this Encounters Dark Side of the Stream. We'll get to that next on 104.7 The Cave. Mike, the intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream episode 151, discussing Encounters on Netflix. And Ollie has joined us for this part of the story.
Ollie is our alien consultant.
We talked about Texas, we talked about UK, we talked about Zimbabwe, and now we're going to talk about the last one, which was Lights Over Fukushima, which was the site of the not only tsunami, but then of course the failure at the nuclear power plant. They had some really good video evidence in this one.
Yeah,
those lights that you can see them merging together, moving together, doing all kinds of stuff.
Over nuclear installations
all the time. And we told that story about the one where the guy was talking about how they all shut off at once.
Yeah,
they went through all those again.
It's all in Phenomenon too. Yeah,
it was kind of one of those examples of how like these two, like the encounter story and then what's happening in the government story is also kind of they piggyback on each other, and it was very, very interesting to not only hear the story from some of the people that experienced it in Japan, but also from the monk, right? Yeah. Because his perspective is that of a religious standpoint, but he still to this day, I mean, because some people believe those were souls leaving.
Right. Which they talked about in that Unsolved Mysteries thing we watched too, with the tsunami and the ghosts.
Yeah, that also could, again, we have no idea. Like there are so many things that are floating to the surface now with all this UFO stuff. Crazy, is man. Like, well, maybe it has to do with the afterlife, or maybe there's so many things that could be what it is.
I know.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be us. Could be some sort of line of evolution that they went into the water and they're more advanced than us, and they're down there and we're just idiots up above.
Time will tell.
It doesn't. We don't know. Point is, when you have things like this and you have the people and the level of people that they keep bringing in time and time again, it's not just the crazy hair dude from Ancient Aliens anymore.
Yep.
It's guys like us. Even
Yeah.
though we might be on the line, it's like, hey,
It's senators, it's
what do you-
congressmen. Yeah.
What do we have to gain from that? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, something's going on,
And
man.
so something is definitely going on. We'll give this documentary our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time. Episode 157, Dark Side of the Stream. We discussed Encounters on Netflix. I give this a solid 4, my guy.
I'll go 3.5.
Solid 4.
Yeah, 3.5. You know,
I mean, I at the end of the day, they didn't reinvent the wheel. Almost all of these encounters I'd
it's
heard
just
about.
always interesting to hear these things.
It's just you're just selling it,
More
and selling it, and
pieces,
selling
yep.
it. Get more
More
people on
pieces.
this train to start asking your senators and
All aboard.
lawmakers to get this stuff out. Come on, man. If the government's spending money on this
Well,
stuff, we need to know what the hell is
it's-
going on.
it's-
We pay for the
They're
government.
working on it. They're working on it.
We'll see what happens.
You got other things too going on.
Yeah, a lot. But again, dude, come on, let's figure this stuff out. And the one thing that I also wanted to bring up, which I think now after seeing these guys, especially the dude from Texas, is like for my whole life, I've always wanted to have some sort of encounter, like see it, maybe not being abducted. I don't think I want to live through that, but
Probing?
like,
You want the
yeah, I don't
probing?
want,
You want the
I
probing?
get enough probing from Jay around here.
I was gonna say, I got you.
Jay
I can
does
put
all
on
the
a green
probing.
suit. And
Jay does all the probing we need.
Spirit
here.
Halloween's
That's
still
probably
open.
why we haven't had encounters. Like, oh, that guy's got it. So but after watching what these people went through, I don't
Yeah,
know if I
right.
want it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like ignorance is bliss, you know, and they have to live with that and they have to carry it with them. And I don't want to do that. So
well, you hope
I'm
you don't
kinda
get
walking
sucked
that
up.
back
Yeah, I
now.
hope you don't get sucked in. You know,
yeah, you know what I
too deep.
mean? Like because you could tell, especially with that old man from Texas, when I was
Oh,
watching
man.
that, I was like, dude, this is run his life ever. And we're talking about a guy who built planes
Dude, you
himself.
hopped in a
Like,
plane
he's
to go
like the
chase
coolest
them.
guy in
Hopped
the
in a plane to
world.
go chase them.
Yeah, they were like
Let's
trying to
go.
figure out where the things were and they're on their own.
Wow.
That guy, it rocked him. So if it can rock a guy like that, it definitely can rock a guy like me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want that.
Rugged cowboy like that. Man.
Yeah, dude. And those Texas guys, they don't mess around. I don't know if I want it now. I mean, it'd be one thing to kind of see it fly in the sky and be like, what was that? But completely different to
All
be
right. No
in that
more.
experience.
Mike doesn't want no more encounters.
No more encounters
If
for
you're
me.
listening.
Jay, it's your pick next week. What are we watching?
Well, I kind of stayed away from this one while it was happening just because I was like, I do not care about this. But since they made a documentary about it, I thought, well, I'll watch it because Lord knows I've had my share of crazy women and crazy relationships. So Depp versus Heard.
Oh God, you
Johnny
watch
Depp
that
versus
crap?
Amber Heard.
Okay. So we could talk about her doing a bump of coke
Well,
live on national television in a
they-
court.
They both
All right, let's go.
They both. That's a great example of a toxic relationship.
Hell
No matter how
yes.
much money you have, you can still get sucked into a toxic
and
relationship.
really what it comes down to is how good your lawyer is. Either way, that's what we'll discuss. Heard versus Depp. You can watch Dark Side of the Stream live on Facebook or YouTube every Thursday at 9 a.m. Download it as a podcast for free on our 104.7 The Cave app, or listen to it during my show at 9 a.m. or Jay's show at 6 p.m. I am Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens and Ollie somewhere reminding
Sully!
you
we watch
we watch movies
documentaries,
so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7
We get probes, so you don't have to.
The Cave.